Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch and another day in the life of a Land Rover hoarder. And I am truly feeling like a Land Rover hoarder with the weather around here. It's been nothing but rain. It's been challenging because of that, but we got somewhat of a mess sitting on the parking lot here. And that is because today we are sorting out the chassis on the lightweight, along with maybe a little bit of organization because I'm out of room. Because in my opinion, if you have more room than stuff, you're not technically a hoarder. So we have fully gone into hoarder status, but let's get going on our series lightweight and try and get that into order. I need something in my life to be in order. The LR4 truck's also up in the air. Lots of things going on, but we are gonna sort out the chassis on the lightweight today. So last week we mocked up that driver's side engine mount. Well, we need to jig that up, make the permanent one, get both those mounts welded into place. But before that, we're gonna strip down some of the stuff on the chassis itself, mainly the fuel line. When I purchased this, the fuel tank was sitting in the rear tub, and we're gonna go back to underneath the seat box where the battery is now. So this is gonna change. That means the battery is also gonna change, so we'll get that out of there. And then we'll plug our brake line here and roll this thing back out of the shop so we can get it cleaned off. So I believe our chassis is in pretty good nick. I believe that's what you guys would say over in England, but no, it's in pretty good shape. Minus it just has a decent amount of built up undercoating, and I want to strip as much of that off so we can properly assess the condition of this. It's obviously covered in dirt in the back. We got something going on right there. And then we also need to cut off the mounting plates from that hacked together roll bar that it had when we purchased it. Now this thing is definitely a if the walls could talk type of vehicle. I'd love to know the complete history on what's been done to it over the years, because just the stuff that I'm touching is pretty interesting. Like we have this, what used to be a fuel tank made into a battery tray. When I bought it, it had a Buick V6, not a Buick V8 like a Rover V8, no, a Buick V6. Swapped into it with an automatic. It was two-wheel drive. Prior to that, it had a Rover V8 swapped into it. It more than likely came with a 2 1/4 petrol or gas engine. And now we have a 200 TDI sitting in it. It had a regular series truck cab on it when I purchased it. I gave that to Ted. He's got better use for it. It had like a trial style roll bar in the back made out of what looked like fence post. And we didn't cope the tube, we just filled the gap with weld. Just interesting. So it feels like the perfect one for me to mess with. I don't feel bad kind of putting my own take on it, even though it is an early inboard headlight lightweight, which is a kind of rare beast. Now I'm curious if any of this is gonna come off with the pressure washer. We have a really nice pressure washer setup that was built for when we had the dealership and washing cars, and it is fantastic for that. It is a perfect dialed in pressure for doing that, along with capacity for foaming and everything. But it's also not super high pressure because you didn't want to damage cars. So downfall when you're trying to peel stuff off. Peeling some off, but I think we're going to be doing quite a bit of scraping. Oh, there, it's coming off on top of the cross member. That's nice. Well, I think that's as good as we can get it with the pressure washer. It's considerably cleaner, at least. Not a whole lot of the undercoating has peeled off. So I think we're gonna do some scraping and then hit it with the pressure washer once again. Then maybe a little wire wheel action in certain spots, but we're gonna let that drip dry overnight. No sense in scraping a bunch of wet stuff. But even just knocking some of the dirt off, I feel pretty good about this whole chassis. It is actually really nice. That section there that had some undercoating that I was able to peel off, look at how clean that is underneath. It's just gonna be a good one to work with. Like I said, we have the rear cross member we got to address there. It almost looks like it was probably backed into something at some point in time and then pulled back straight. The rust probably came after it broke. The only real rust I see is on this outrigger, but the rest of it looks pretty solid, so maybe we'll just cut a patch to weld in for that. Otherwise, I think I have an outrigger in the storage container, so maybe we'll just chop it off and replace it, but I don't know that there's a need to do that. I'd almost rather leave the rest of it if it cleans up decent, but we'll make that determination after we scrape some stuff off. So I was kind of dreading this whole process. I thought I was gonna have to like hand scrape all the thick undercoating off there, but then I remembered I have a multi-tool and they make scrapers. Turns out this is a pretty slick way of going about it, and it's gonna make quick work of it. I mean, it's still a job to strip all that undercoating off. And I don't know what you guys use over across the pond, but that stuff is on there thick. It's like a 1/4 inch thick. But we're like halfway through, and the good news is it's gonna rain. So that puts a little damper on stuff, so I'm gonna push this in real quick, and then we'll continue when it's not raining. Hold up. Suppose I should sweep up my mess before that gets rained on as well. No, I really don't want to clean more of the undercoating off in the shop. I just don't want to make a mess of the shop. But what we can do while it's raining is cut these plates off. Like I said, these were for the roll bar. I'm not a fan of how they're attached anyways. This is gonna get a roll bar. We are gonna do some off-roading with it, so we're gonna need a little bit of protection, but that roll bar is gonna be better than the one that was on there before, and it's not gonna utilize the same exact position. So we'll just take the zip disc and knock these guys off real quick. And just like I suspected, much of those welds weren't even touching the plate. So like this whole front section, they missed. The rest of the roll bar was pretty rough construction, so that doesn't shock me at all. I would hate to have an actual rollover with that roll bar. If you have something like that, it actually becomes more dangerous than not having a roll bar at all. If you have something that's gonna break away, you're gonna get impaled, or you're gonna take a tube to the head when it collapses, which usually ends up much worse off. So if you're gonna do a roll bar or a roll cage, make sure it's of good construction so you don't risk dying. Because as much fun all this Land Rover and off-road stuff is, it's really not enough fun to die over, or at least I don't think so. Yeah, I didn't even have to cut a couple of those. Sketchy. I didn't even touch this side to cut it. So we just knocked that off with a little short 3-pound hammer. Look at that. So we cut there and a little bit of this one. And you see there's absolutely no penetration to the frame and zero penetration from that one to the plate. That would have been a bad deal. So since we're gonna be here for at least a little bit longer, we need to organize some of the mess I made. So we were supposed to be actually moving stuff to a different place at this point in time, but obviously we're not. So I left myself a mess because I figured we would just move it and organize it as we put it in the other place. But the way I have it laid out right now really isn't sustainable from a work aspect. So we just visited my favorite store. Yes, Menards. So we could try and go somewhere with some stuff. Putting shelves up against the wall really doesn't work out in this particular situation for me because we can only go back to one additional vehicle over there, which will be the lightweight. But at this point in time, we got to do what we got to do. The good news is the sun came back out, so we can roll the chassis back outside and finish cleaning this up. It's supposed to rain again, so we're going to wait to organize the inside. Try and be efficient with my time. This is pretty much how all those welds look too. Look at all the porosity. That little roll bar situation was a death trap. I don't quite feel like laying on the ground, so we're gonna kind of just tip this up a little bit to get to the bottom side. You ever have a project you regret starting? Well, this is kind of one of them. This is turning out to be way bigger pain than I was expecting. I mean, it'll be nice when it's done. It'll be a little bit more of a cleaner slate to mess with, but holy cow, there's a lot of undercoating on this, which is good. It saved a lot of the chassis, but I'll show you some spots later on why like this thick of undercoating isn't necessarily always good. It can cause damage as well. Well, we got the underneath wire wheeled off. Got quite a bit on me. But let's set this thing back down. We can clean off the rest of it. I just can't catch a break right now. It is starting to rain again. I'm going to keep wire wheeling as much as I can until it starts pouring. That's really putting a damper on everything. I don't want to do it, like I said, I don't want to do it inside the shop because this is a freaking mess. Man, the weather just needs to cooperate. We're so close to being prepped too. We got the underneath all done. I need to hit it with a stripping disc a little bit, but we'll show you that when we get to that point. So here's a stripping disc. These things work fantastic. Lovely. Last night it wasn't supposed to do that. All right, we got a little bit of a break in the weather, probably about 20 minutes, so I just went and finished off what we needed to with the wire wheel. And now I just want to throw some degreaser on it, get it sprayed back off, and we can let it dry and hopefully get to coat it tonight. Thankfully, we get to do that inside, so the weather won't matter because guess what? It's gonna rain again. just trying to help in the drying time there. We're pretty much prepped up to go. We need to get our engine mounts welded in, address this situation back here. I think ultimately this rear cross member is going to go away. Kind of planned on building my own at some point in time just to have something a little beefier on there, but the more and more I look, the sooner that's probably going to happen. We're going to get this thing rolling and driving first before we mess with that. So we'll paint it now, but it's been replaced once before and poorly at that. So we'll probably section it right at these rear resting pads and create a new one at some point in time. Something a little beefier and less cobbled together. Other than that, it is make the new mount over there, weld this one in, patch this hole. Everything else on the chassis is actually in really good shape. I thought once we got that 1/4 inch of undercoating off there, we'd see a little more that was hiding underneath, but truly it was just this section there, and that's easy enough to fix. I guess I forgot to plug the mic in, but here we are. We're using our little brake to bend up the new engine mount that we mocked up last week. Surprisingly, the brake is actually working. It doesn't usually do that anymore, but like always, when it does work, it is pretty slick. And we gotta make a nice little piece that fits. But yeah, here we are getting that tacked in. So we cut the rust out of that one, and I have no idea why that rotted out. So it's late enough at night, we're gonna just coat this thing in the morning. But we have our rust patched up, everything welded up in the rear, mounts welded in up front. The chassis is good to go. That's a good feeling. Now we're gonna get to these after we do the paint work on the chassis. But being we're gonna be painting over there, this top lid seems like a good thing to put underneath it so we don't get any on the concrete, because the stuff that we're using isn't going to come off. Yes, we're going to use Pour 15 on the chassis. It's kind of like the go-to for that type of stuff. The only unfortunate thing is we have 1 quart here. Hopefully that's enough, because this single quart, $68 US, not Canadian, whole dollars. So that's $272 per gallon. That one was kind of painful to purchase, but for the old lightweight, it's worth it. All right, we got our really good paint booth going on here, but no, we're not spraying it. We're just gonna brush it on, roll it on, and we are ready to go. We got to make sure to glove up on this one. I'm not good about wearing gloves all the time, but I really don't want to spend weeks with this stuff on my hands. You get this on your hands, it stays on your hands until your skin leaves. Now we're gonna use a combination of rolling and brushing on this. Kind of roll all the flat surfaces, brush everything else that we can't touch. And in my opinion, Pour 15 is probably the best option for coating a frame if you're not going to blow it apart and get it galvanized. So as an assembled piece, this is about as good as it gets for us, and it'll make it much nicer than it was before. And we'll see how far we go with the lightweight. Maybe someday we'll just get a new galvanized frame and go to town with it. I just kind of want to drive it. I don't want to make everything a massive project. I do that quite often in life, but I think we'll do 2 coats on this. And you know, like the smart person I am, I just start in the middle. Seems like the best place to start, right? It's a little bit of a tedious job brushing this stuff on with so many things still in the way. And when we switch out the leaf springs and shocks, we'll have a little touch up to do, but this will get us 90% of the way there and allow us to reassemble it. And that's the real reason why we've kind of paused on the LR4 truck to tackle the lightweight. So I had the lightweight semi blown apart, and as you guys can see in the shop, that just doesn't work. We needed to get this to a point where I can reassemble it. Plus, I mean, it's close enough, it'd be nice to drive this thing. So we got the first coat down. It is nice seeing it all uniform for the most part. That's gonna take a couple hours to tack up, especially with how humid it is out. Then we throw another final coat on it. Like I said, we're gonna have some stuff that we're gonna have to touch up along the way. The one thing I don't like about Pour 15 is the glossiness of it. I mean, good news is it's going to be covered by the body, but I'm just not a glossy chassis kind of guy. A nice like semi-gloss satin or matte would be better, but what can you do? I don't make the stuff. And we did good so far. I only have one tattoo. The rest of me is all clean. So we're just touching up on the final coat here. All right, we are gonna call that good to go. And while that dries, we'll try and move a couple things and maybe start setting the shelves up. But I think that's gonna be on the next video for the most part, but we'll get some of the stuff out of the way here real quick. The largest problem I need to solve right at the moment is I don't even have enough room to spread stuff out to organize it. So we're gonna try and attempt to like gain a little bit. It's just we're the exact opposite of efficient right now. Can't wait to use this guy on something someday. Hey, look, we found more hidden parts. You know, who doesn't need a 25-foot flagpole? All right, that gives us a little more space to work with. So what we're gonna do is set one up, kind of load that. And with those two shelf kits, we're gonna be able to make 3 sections of shelf. We're just gonna have less shelves on each one, which will work out with what we're trying to do here. We can also go buy additional bars from Menards anytime we want, but that should get us in a better position and be able to stuff the engines underneath them, parts on top. The C10's gonna have to slide forward so we can sneak behind it because we're doing 3 77-inch sections, which is 231 inches, I believe, which is more inches than we have from the truck bed to the wall. Now this stuff isn't the sturdiest stuff in the world, but it's something I can grab in town here without much trouble. And they still claim that it does 2,000 pounds per shelf. I don't know if I'd trust it at that. But right at the moment, it's gonna solve a problem. So there's the first one down. These come with 3 shelves, but we're leaving the bottom more open so we can slide some of the engines and transmissions under them. We'll start loading this guy up, try and organize some of what's going on here. But that will happen on this weekend's video. This weekend's video is gonna be a big cleanup video. We'll have some assembly of the lightweight on there as well, but the real challenge we're facing here is space, and we need to tackle our mess so we can actually get some work done around here. So stay tuned for Sunday. We will be doing some organizing, 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound sack. Story of my life. With that being said, appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing. We will catch you this weekend, and I think we're in pretty good shape on the lightweight now.